Welcome to Decades of Heistory, where we cover safecrackers and bank heists from 1926 up until U.S. involvement in World War II. Ready to speed around the country for some new, bizarre, brief bank heist stories? We've got a possible fake robbery plot, one convicted felon requesting to take on prison time for his buddy, an embezzlement leading to a heart attack, and more in December of 1926, Decades of Heistory. Two men, giving names of Clyde A. Stratton, age 20, of Coyne, Iowa, and an L. Huffman of Wichita, Kansas, were arrested on Monday, December 10th after, quote, a tussle, end quote, with Sheriff Carl Ryder, during which Huffman tried to pull his gun on the sheriff. Stratton and Huffman were carrying approximately $3,600 when arrested by the sheriff, one of the bundles of which, quote, bore the wrapper, end quote, of the City National Bank of Wichita Falls, Texas. Sheriff Ryder believed they were involved in a bank robbery in Kansas City, Missouri the week before. Yes, the stack of cash wrapped in a bank's wrapper does seem suspect. It makes me wonder if you know enough to be a cop. A warning was made to northern Indiana banks to maintain vigilance in connection with a plot to hit two area banks. The plot was discovered the evening of Tuesday, December 28th, the night before. Two notes were found, one in Mishawaka and the other in Winnemac. Both notes referred to plans to rob the two different banks. Quote, you get State Bank at 2 o'clock and we will get the other, end quote, read one of the notes. Adding a dose of credibility was that a woman in Elkhart, Indiana apparently overheard a conversation about a planned bank robbery. She reported the information to police. The report resulted in the arrest of Arthur Cochran, 18, and Albert Lincoln, 20, both of South Bend, Indiana, and a Clarence Mills, 24, of Chicago. The latter was an ex-convict. Yet, for some reason, authorities thought it might be a ruse or some kind of game to, quote, excite the populace and take advantage of the apathy that follows such a false alarm, end quote. I assume that meant they would let the day of the alleged bank heists go by with nothing happening and then perpetrate that or another crime shortly thereafter. One gun was found in the automobile that was seized, but all three of the people mentioned above denied knowledge of any bank robbing plot. Staying in Indiana, we find that Harold Orr, Russell Huffman, and a J.M. Dehart, D-E-H-A-R-T, of Indianapolis, and a Harry Settle of Sullivan, Indiana, were to be arraigned in circuit court on second-degree burglary charges in connection with attempting to rob the Farmer and Merchants Bank at Elizabethtown, Indiana, back on Sunday, presumably December 12th. All four had been arrested in Bloomington, Indiana, but had been brought back to Columbus for trial. Fast forwarding 2 weeks and utilizing the Bismarck Tribune, we find the story Robbers Emulate Damon and Pythias, which was a Greek myth that involved one of them being found guilty in some form or fashion, and I think it involved Sparta. He was going to be put to death, but he asked for time to get his family and his situation in order. In order to do that, the king allowed him to leave, even though he was to be put to death. In exchange, his friend, the other guy, had to be held under arrest. And so this story is, I guess, somewhat related to that. And this is how. It turns out that Russell Huffman was actually Hoffman, and he was facing 14 years for attempted bank robbery, all at the youthful age of 20. In a touching or confounding move, Hoffman asked to serve part of a companion sentence in order to allow his buddy to get married. Hoffman had been taken to the Pendleton Reformatory, but, quote, besought, end quote, Judge Julian Sharpnack to transfer several years of Harold Orr's 10-year sentence to him. This is a strange and sad tale, especially since it was New Year's Eve, December 31st, 1926. Harry Cohn, C-O-H-N, president of the American Savings Bank and Trust Company, had closed the bank 2 weeks ago after an assistant cashier named Clarence Henuchsberg self-eliminated via firearm. Why would Clarence Henuchsberg end his own existence? He had confided in friends that his accounts came up $300,000 short. Oddly, before Clarence's death, a Richard Park, a bookkeeper, had disappeared, and examiners found shortages of over $100,000 in his books as well. Following Clarence's self-deletion, Park surrendered to police and stated, quote, he had been a tool of Clarence Henuchsberg's, end quote. In addition, yet 2 additional clerks were arrested and then were out on bond with charges of embezzling. As if that wasn't bad enough, the 78-year-old Cohn was in the bank, presumably trying to make sense of things that New Year's Eve. He collapsed and died shortly thereafter. We turn to the New Britain Herald, Tuesday, December 28, 1926 edition, titled, Detroit Bandits Wait for Messengers, Steal $18,000. 2 bank bandits followed Kenneth Lyons, a teller, and Mrs. Elizabeth Burton, a bookkeeper, into the Commonwealth Federal Savings Bank branch at Davison and Woodrow Wilson Avenues. Inside the bank, the 2 employees were forced to stand where they would normally stand and to pretend to be working while the bandits awaited the arrival of the manager. When the unnamed manager arrived about 30 minutes later, he was forced to open the vault from which the bandits removed all the currency. The Producer's News, Friday, December 10, 1926, brought the article, Bank Raider Draws Term in Penitentiary. Vincent Gallagher, 38, of Red Lodge, Montana, pleaded guilty to attempting to rob the Miners State Bank at Bear Creek, Montana on December 2nd, 1926. He pretty much, it sounds like he held up a cashier named Christiani, which I assume is a man's surname, though there was no more information. Gallagher was sentenced 6 to 12 years by Judge Stong in district court. And Gallagher said that he was tempted to, quote, the deed by worries over gambling debts while drunk, end quote. And that's a bad combination and had some sad results. Let's hope Gallagher cleaned himself up and went on to live a good life. And hopefully we learn more about the Orr-Hoffman friendship and more about the other odd snippets as well that we call quick hitters. That's a wrap for part 3 of December 1926 Decades of Heistory. Next up will be our main stories video, where we'll come across a Texan, quote, girl robber, end quote, whose story is covered by 10 different editions, and we'll cover a Minnesota daring daylight bank heist. For now, I want to thank you for spending your time with Decades of Heistory. Until next time.
Where somebody waits for me, sugar sweet, and so is she. Bye.